Hello, you're listening to the Dougie Sharpe podcast. My guest today is entrepreneur, small business owner, sports announcer, and the smartest guy I know, Connor Palahicky. Thanks for coming in today, Connor.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. I appreciate the high adulation. That's very nice of you. Thanks
Dude,
for the invite.
I'm stoked you started with the big vocabulary. And the only reason I feel this way is because you consume books on a level that I have never seen before. How many books did you read in 2023?
This one was a little lower because one of the books I read was quite substantial. It's the Gulag Archipelago. For anyone who's read it, it's about 2,100 pages. So it was, and dense 2,100.
Yeah.
You go through that book and it was like a couple months of reading. Yeah,
Holy.
That one was very substantial. But yeah, I try to do about 30 books a year.
That's insane.
I don't know, for readers, so have you heard of a centurion, which is 100 books a year? So
No.
that's what some people do. So
Is that what you're going for? Is that the end goal is hit 100 books a year?
I just try to stay consistent with it, just read things that I enjoy reading and that I'm interested in. So
I remember you talking about it when you were first starting. What set you off on that path to be I want to read? I want to read as much as I can.
I think it was just great minds and hearing what they did. And one of the things that they would always talk about is learning from, all of these. So let's put it this way. When you have a book that is so processed and so well thought out, as opposed to a conversation where if we have a conversation, we say something and we could be like, oh, maybe I didn't actually mean it this way. But when you're writing or when you're, making a book, you're going through every single paragraph and sentence many, many times over. So you get these great thinkers or these great authors, and, that's the highest level that you could possibly read. So when you're digesting that, that's something that, I think everyone should kind of look into and kind of learn from that, because it's so well thought out as opposed to, just kind of casual conversation. But
Podcast or whatever. Yeah. It's hit your vocabulary like crazy though, dude.
Yeah.
You've really absorbed a lot of the vocabulary, and you always stump me with a couple words whenever we talk.
Well, and it is nice because that obviously does help with announcing.
Yeah.
Oratorically gifted like yourself, you kind of work on that. And one thing I was going to say, this might be a little off topic, but I was going to say, Doug, maybe we can get something going. Maybe the guest that comes on, they have to provide a fun fact.
Ooh.
What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, that could be a good one to fold into things. It's you got to come prepared.
Yeah, you got to come prepared. Can you stump the fun fact king?
Oh man, maybe. A lot of people always ask me though, they're like, "Can you I can't remember how I think I've made over 500 in the last 18, 19 months, and I can't remember half of them, I struggle sometimes the one I made a day or two before to remember. Yeah. So people could come in with some of my old ones and probably stump me on them, and I'd be like, I don't know, and they'd be like, you made that before, dude, Yeah. How did the sports announcing thing come around? Because was that random for you, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. Let's put it this way. I think decades of watching sports has finally paid off. Where you just we all have certain announcers in our head that we just relive over and over, and whether it's Bobby Orr's goal or Crosby's goal, or in football Hail Mary bat, there's just so many announcing sayings that you're you just kind of recall, and you're it just adds so much to the moment. So everybody appreciates sports announcing, and then I kind of got into it through skate night and through skateboarding, which skate night is a contest we put on at a club in Whistler.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice just getting the mic time, because let's say announcing is an amalgamation of, you got to be, you got to have some comedy. It's almost like stand-up, but then you also have to be describing what's going on in front of you. You also have to be very accurate with what you are describing. You have to have knowledge of the sport. And then there's also a certain flow that you have to have, right? So you're taking the audience on a journey in the sense that you have to bring the energy up to a certain, when something's going on, you really have to bring that energy. And when there's nothing going on, you can't just say silent. You kind of have to have a good kind of flow, talk about certain things. And so that definitely helped me with mic time doing that, because I did it once a week for 2 hours, say.
Yeah.
So 2 hours every week I was on the mic. And yeah, as you noted earlier, like a bit quiet, laconic, and as I get on the mic, I've become a lot more stentorian, loquacious. I really bring the energy, but it is part of the environment that you're just in that really helps.
Feeling the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Skate night's a cool one. I think that's like one of those really cool Whistler things that just happens, and I think it's such an interesting one that very few people know is actually kind of happening, and it's so sick that they just let the boys go in there and play a game of skate before the bar opens, and then how much of a bar tab do you win if you get it?
So yeah, I'll just explain the whole night for those wondering. So skate night essentially is at Garfinkel's in Whistler. We get skateboarders from all over the place. A lot of them coming from Vancouver and such. I usually start off with a game called Red Can in Hand. How it works is I call a trick. They do a trick. If they land it, they get a tasty treat. We're not giving away alcohol, a tasty treat. So yeah, they get that, and then afterwards we get the skate contest going. Which the level of skateboarding you see inside a nightclub is pretty outstanding. It blows my mind. And what's also really cool is in real time, especially because I've announced it for so long, you kind of know the tricks that each athlete has and what's in their repertoire. And you do see times where, they're trying a trick that they've never done in their life. They've never even tried to do it. And whatever it is, the skate night magic, they just put it down first try. And everybody knows. And it just blows the roof off the place. So that's really cool.
Dude, I've been such a big fan of like the Barracks Games of Skate for that same reason.
So that's kind of what I kind of obviously copy a lot of. Is kind of what they do. And then what else is fun is this past year we got a belt, like a championship belt.
I saw that.
So they win a belt, which is fun.
Pretty sick. And some good community honors as well. Like like there's oh God, what am I trying to say? Talking respect? What's the word I'm trying to say? Community respect? I'm completely losing my my point. Anyways, great event. And then you went from there to Fire and Ice?
Yeah, so I jumped in the Fire and Ice show. Well, I still jump in the Fire and Ice show. So for those wondering what that is, we essentially have a ring of fire that we jump through. And
on skis and snowboards.
Yeah, and skis and snowboards at the bottom of Whistler, and it's a cool event, and
it is,
that as well has really upped the ante on production value. And when it first started, and this is way before my time because it's been going on for I think 2 decades now.
It's been a long time.
They would hand build the jump.
Really?
Back in the day, they would shovel and just hand build the jump. Now we have cats that do it, obviously, snow cats, and so we kind of go up there, jump through Ring of Fire. So I did that still do it, so I think 7 or 8 years now. And then I always wanted to get into the announcing side because I had the background with skate night, and it's something that I want to pursue because I enjoy it. I really enjoy announcing and calling people's tricks and, just kind of bringing that energy. And as we talked about, I'm a bit timorous, laconic, and they're kind of like, I don't know, Connor, like, we'll see. We got other announcers, and then they handed me a microphone, and once I got a microphone, it just kind of brought that energy, and they're kind of like, oh, and the fact that I know a lot of the tricks and everything that's going on, and I jump in it, so I know exactly what it's like to jump through the ring, because it's different. Like, you're a snowboarder, you know that when you're hitting a jump, just like a regular jump, you'll set up a certain way for the trick that you're doing, obviously, right? But the Fire and Ice show, you only have, maybe
There's
2.5
not much
feet.
room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're setting up certain tricks, I only do really like certain tricks that I know are automatic through the ring, because and it's impressive, like what you see some of the top level guys do. Like they're doing like 900s through the ring, and
it's an actual ring of fire.
Yeah, it's an actual ring of fire.
It's an actual ring of fire.
Not only that, you got people jumping behind you, people jumping in front of you, you got fireworks going off. Like, it's a full-on show.
Yeah.
Like, it is a full-on show.
I know. And some of the boys go hard. Like, you see, like, I'm obviously not going to every single one because there's quite a few throughout the winter. But you see, like, the stories come out on Instagram sometimes, and you're just like, dude, what did you do last night? Like, what?
Yeah, and this year especially, they beefed up the team.
Did they?
Yeah, they got a couple of skiers. Rylan Evans, who was on Great Britain team.
Yeah.
Jack McDougall.
I love Jack. And like, I really hope he really comes into it. Like, that clip that came out of him from tennis, like where he goes rodeo off the form step down, was insane.
Yeah.
I love the landing too, like the superhero landing of he landed so hard and heavy that the entire snow around him just fractured. I love Jack. I'm such a huge fan.
Craig, and it was Seb that filmed that one, right?
Yeah.
They were talking about it, and he was like, "Oh, he was gonna go out of frame. Like I didn't think he was gonna land."
Yeah, on the Airtime podcast with Jody. Yeah.
So if you guguys see that clip,
it is an insane.
You've probably seen it.
Insane clip. That's one of my favorites. Who else do they have out there? The Bryn shows up to a couple.
Bryn,
most underrated snowboarder out there.
Jesus. He put out some clips this year as well.
Yeah, he did.
Jesse Millen.
Yeah.
All time. Like I'm gonna forget. There's quite a big list, but favorite skier. We got Jake Carney.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so funny. I tell this story sometimes. So for those who don't know, Jake Carney is, what would you say? Like he's every skier's favorite skier in the sense that he just has the best style and just goes big. Like that's all he does. Like he doesn't do the craziest tricks. He just has the most amazing style and just goes big.
Yeah.
And he just has it down to an absolute science. And whenever he does the Fire and Ice show, his whole thing is to land as deep as possible. Like just, and he does 180s, and his head is literally like twice as high. Like his skis are above people's heads when jumping through the ring.
Sick.
And I made the mistake one time to follow him. And sure enough, I did a back rodeo, and I went to the absolute bottom of the landing. And it's so funny because at the end of the show, we go around, we kind of high-five everybody in the crowd that comes out to watch. And a guy shows me his phone. He's like, "Dude, look at this video." It is me exploding on the landing, like going to the absolute bottom, and Jake just stomping and riding away.
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, man, I know." Like,
yeah, feels about right.
Yeah.
Feels about right.
So that was humbling, which was good.
And now you're doing the Freestyle World Tour announcing as well.
So Freestyle World Tour, which is really cool. Like that was a really cool event.
Yeah.
And I'll say this here because why not? So initially I was doing the Fire and Ice, and then events got in contact with me and they said, "Hey, we got the Freeride World Tour. Would you like to announce it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like let me announce anything." Like
I'm here for it. Yeah.
So I kind of go home. They send me the kind of list of riders and everything, and I try to do as much research as I can. Like I take it really seriously. Like I know how much effort these athletes put in to their craft, so it's only fair that I put that same amount of effort in. That's kind of how I see it. But anyway, so I never watched a Freeride World Tour event until that day that I was announcing. And luckily, I was there with Mark, who is the voice for Freeride World Tour podcast, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
So luckily, I was there with him, which made it a lot easier in the sense that like I didn't have to know everything. But going into that event was really cool. Watching it live because like I said, I'd never seen it.
Yeah.
And I remember I get into the tent and Mark is going, I'm voice of Freeride World Tour podcast, the Low Pressure podcast, and I'm here with, and I go, Connor Palahicky, voice of Skate Night. And it's just so funny, like the disparity between, where this guy is and in his career and like where I am, kind of moving towards. And anyways, we're kind of announcing. And what was nice was because he was a skier, I was able to really have a lot of info on what the snowboarders were doing. And, I was able to break that down. So when I announce, because I announce skiing and snowboarding, so when I announce skiing, and I'm working on it, I'm getting better, but say I see a guy do a 270 out or whatever it is, like I'll be like, 270 out on a rail. Then a snowboarder, I'll see a front blend same way, or front board 270 out, and I'll be like, he came in off his toe edge, caught the rail beautifully, 270'd out, looked over the shoulder. Like, you just break it down so much more because you've done it.
Yeah, you know
exactly
it deeply.
How it works. So the skiing I've been kind of working on. But so that day when I was doing the Freeride World Tour, I go to him, I go, "So how many runs do these guys get?" He looks at me like, "Who is this idiot?" Like, one run. And I was like, like one run.
Wow,
like,
win it or lose it. Like,
yeah, that's good to know. Like, thank you. But it worked out really well. Like, like I said, just having the background of announcing sports and, like it wasn't like I was out of my element. Like I still know a lot of the tricks, especially with the Freeride World Tour where it's not super technical in the sense that they're doing the craziest grabs and 10s, 12s, 14s. Like you're not, it's more kind of your flips, your corks, your
maybe a 7.
A 7, exactly.
Yeah.
and then them just gapping ridiculously large.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first guy that came in, not even over exaggerating, like I think he went 80 feet. Like it was one of the ones where he does, like, you know, where they start pumping with their legs in the air, like the double
Everything's
pump.
going,
exactly.
yeah,
like the windows,
flying.
Yeah, like the windows are rolling down, but not like aggressively, like the small windows rolling down. And
Yeah.
like, okay, like,
dude.
So
Those guys ride some very marginal terrain as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a lot like surfing
yeah.
where you show up and it's like that's what you got, and it's like,
Yeah.
really?
and
Like,
flat light and
yeah,
no. So it made me respect it a lot, which was really cool.
And you have a couple more of those coming up this year, or still trying to get a little bit more on tour?
So
or?
I want to do, I'll probably have a couple of those. Well, like I did the junior, which was really cool as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do when I'm announcing is, you know, what I talked about, where I know that these people put a lot of effort in, these athletes, and it's only fair that I put that same effort in, and for each and every person, no matter the skill level, because there is big disparities in skill levels, you know, that's fact. But one of the things that I did when I announced the junior event, so it was like, I think it was, I don't know, say 10-year-olds to like 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds or whatever. And these people are coming from like Jackson Hole, like all over the States. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Like traveling Alaska, a lot from Alaska and everything. So I was like, okay, their families are out here. Like the one thing I have to do is when they cross that finish line, just, you know, give them a full, you know, name call out, and like, you know, just make them feel special coming across the line. Because, and it's funny, I remember doing that. I played hockey. I lived in Edmonton for a year when I was, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that. And I remember I scored a goal, and it's the only time I've ever had my name announced, like playing hockey, being like, scored by number 7, Connor Palahicky, and like that just like resonated with me, being like, whoa, like they called my name over the intercom. So that is kind of where I'm like, oh, I remember kind of being in that position. So yeah, it's really hard, especially when you see such a disparity of riders, to have that same level of energy, because like it has to be that way, right? In the sense that if someone's just carving down the hill, you can't be like, oh, look at these carbs, this is insane.
Yeah.
And then the next kid's, you know, doing a 360 off the top of a cliff. You know, you gotta be careful. Like if you overuse the energy meter, it becomes fake, and you know, and people see that. So you kind of got to be cautious with how much you're using that energy. But when they're coming across the line, it's fair to every single person that you know, they went up there, they did the run, and
they showed up.
Cool. Yeah. So
no, I like how you said, like, make them feel a little special. Like even if you had a bad run out there, you know, like when you cross the line, like you get to feel like you went out there and did something. I think that's a good way to do it.
The parents are there, like they want to hear their kid's name get called. Now I will say, probably the hardest thing about announcing is trying to pronounce some of these names. You get the rider list and you're like, oh my goodness, like it is very, very hard.
Honestly, don't be too hard on yourself on that one, because even like the Olympics sometimes, man, you're like listening to someone pronounce names and you're like, did you not think before this event to go find that person or their coach and be like, how do I say your name? It's crazy. And at that level, I find it disrespectful, you know?
Yeah, when it's top tier, and you do have those names in you know, months in advance or whatever, like, and you can kind of follow up with them. And one of the things that I like to do whenever I show up to an event is just talk to the riders. Yeah. Hey, who's your pick for the day? And they love that, man. They'll and I'll take notes of who's saying what, and there'll always be jabs and, you know, kind of some banter between the kids and the athletes, and it's super fun. And then you kind of add that in, which is good, because they do provide like the athlete and kind of 2 sentences about them, but it's always, I don't know, you can just tell that I'm reading it, and it's not
when it's coming off a piece of paper.
So when you can actually like interact with the athletes, and that's why I love, like when I announce Fire and Ice, it's so easy for me because I'm friends with a lot of these guys, and I know exactly, you know, kind of who they are and their personalities and everything. So it makes it a lot easier, and you can get really creative with it. Like you can come up with all witty, you know, names and stuff for them. So
plus, you know, not going to offend people, and it makes it a little bit easier to not have to hear something on the back end like, how could you say such a thing, and you're like, I didn't mean it that way. Like fair enough. That's awesome, man. And then I think like something I love about you is I think you're like the true entrepreneur at the moment. Like we've gotten a little cloudy in our entrepreneurship through like Instagram and TikTok, and you have all these kids on there or these older people that are like, I just feel like we're getting sold like this fake dream of entrepreneurship at the moment, versus, now we've heard about your kind of day jobs a little bit. You've got a beach towel brand as well that you're running on the side or trying to make your main thing. And when did that?
So
go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, it's really month to month. Like, sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's booming. It's doing really, really well. You kind of see that trajectory, and you're just always busy, which is good. But then other times it's just you get a lull, and it's kind of interesting. And you still are putting in the same effort, but just whether it's Preto distributions where you make a lot of the money off a few short sales or a few in a small period of time. But yeah, no, it keeps me busy, and it just really lets me understand business. Yeah. And I'm going to quote a lot of probably Charlie Munger, rest in peace.
Charlie, yeah.
And another one of my big heroes is Manish Babrai. And what they kind of talk about is like finding asymmetries, where this is a really good way in the sense that I don't have much downside in beach days. Yeah. Like I have it set up, so the downside is very limited. Yeah. And the upside is who knows where it takes me, and whether it's beach days or whether I move on to something else, which I eventually will. Kind of keep on acquiring businesses and learning as much as I can about businesses and how they operate. But yeah, this is essentially just free university for me at this point. Yeah. And everything's hands-on. The other good thing about, and you would know this as well, is when it's your own company or your own product, everything relies on you. Yeah. You can't say, oh, Johnny's going to take care of it today or tomorrow, or maybe I won't answer this email. No, you have to do it, which is, pros and cons. But it's nice because you have full responsibility in the product and how you're going to operate. And, whenever there's problems, you have to fix them. You can't look to anyone else. It's all up to you. So
it's all on you.
So it's really good in the sense that you learn quick. Yeah. You learn really quick.
Where did it come from? Like, how long ago did you start it, and where did the idea initially come from?
So another kind of interesting thing, whenever you start a product or whatever, it is, I'm sure even with when you probably started Fun Facts, right? Because it used to be Fun Fact Friday.
It was Fun Fact Friday for a long time. Yeah.
And I'm sure you, like, I don't know, maybe you had it in the back of your head, but it was never like, let's see where this goes. Or like, you never had it of like, oh, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. It comes to a certain point and you get a better understanding of what the market wants or what opportunities are out there. And then from there, you kind of can reanalyze and make a more, pragmatic decision moving forward. Mm-hmm. So when we did it, we were just going to do like kind of wholesale towels. It was me and a buddy, we started it. I've taken over since then. So yeah, initially we just did wholesale towels. So, meet a company, the Doug Sharpe podcast, get your logo printed on, sell you 100 of them, blah, blah, blah. And then since then, it's kind of developed into, now I have it broken up into 3 aspects. So I have that one, which still does well. So if companies want to...
Promotional towels, yeah.
Yeah, for events, for parties, for, weddings, whatever it is, and they just want their logo printed on it. It's essentially a billboard on the beach. Yeah. So, these things are, 5 feet in diameter. It's a
Explain your towel a little bit. We can't really open her up too wide here right now, but like they're very unique towels, right? Because they're circular.
Yeah, they're circular,
massive.
So that's kind of where I wanted to go, like with the niches. Try to be a little bit different, try to stand out a little bit. And round towels just kind of, it's not like I came up with the idea; it just kind of fell in our laps in the sense that, it was kind of trending at the time. We're like, let's kind of see how this goes. So as we developed the business, we kind of came up with the idea of, let's think of this as a art canvas, in the sense that it's functional art that you can bring to the beach, you can dry off with, you can go lay in the sun, and you can literally display your art to anybody that you see. I like to dress pretty minimalistic. I don't like super, flashy and a lot of colors, but with a towel, like, by all means, I'll bring that out to the beach. So yeah, we've teamed up with a bunch of artists, and the way that we have the business developed is we can team up with artists literally anywhere in the world. So that's really cool. And they'll design, create their product, and they get paid on a commission basis. So there's no risk on their end. Like I always try to think of asymmetries, like, you know, how much risk am I taking on by partnering with this person? Essentially none or very minimal. So yeah, they'll design it, and I work with some really talented artists. So this one here is Kate Zessel. So she's out of Pemberton, and it's one of the best sellers by far. Like it does really well.
True.
So yeah, it's cool, the kind of people that you meet and the different stories that you get from starting a business. You know, like I've sold products and towels to, you know, pretty much every single continent around the world. You know, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, France, Europe, you know, obviously all over the States, Canada. Yeah, so it's kind of cool, the fact that, you know, say 10 years ago, if you were to tell me that I would be selling products internationally, I'd be like, what? Like, how does that even work? So it is really interesting just what you can do, you know, with a computer and kind of building up a brand. And then one of the other ones, it's, you know, a bit more of a sadder story, but a very powerful story in the sense that it gives me a lot more meaning to, you know, put into, to work into the product and, you know, build the company. One of the first orders that I fulfilled, on our website, we have a customizable interface where you can design and create your own, which is really cool. And I love that because I get on my end whenever someone designs a towel or creates a towel, like it'll tell me that someone that has done it, and then I can go in and I see what they've done. So this specific one was a "Will you marry me" towel, an engagement towel, with a date and everything right there. And I was like, no way, like a product I created, you know, and worked on is changing someone's life. It's literally, you know, changing their life. So I got it made, sent out, and they sent me the photos and everything, and I was like, this is so cool. Like the fact that I, you know, a product that I made did this is very fulfilling. Unfortunately, the one of the partners passed away.
Oof. Yeah. Before the wedding?
I don't know exactly, and I don't want to say.
When? Yeah, fair.
But it was shortly after. So this is a couple years ago. And, you know, obviously, you know, it was devastating because I started following these people and kind of seeing their stories and everything. And, you know, I did send them a heartfelt apology and, you know, but then since then, this is, you know, probably about a month and a bit ago, the girl reached out and said, hey, unfortunately, the towel that I had was destroyed in a flood. You know, by any chance, do you have that design, that print? And I'm like, yeah, got it right here. So I was like, hey, you know, like I know the story and everything, you know, I've followed this, like, don't worry, this is on me. So, you know, I was able to send her out a new product, and just seeing the sheer joy, like she sent me a photo and everything, just being like, you have no idea what this means. It is super special, you know, just knowing that, you know, going back to the asymmetry thing, you know, even if this thing goes to zero, you know, doesn't, you know, blows up and, you know, whatever happens, it's okay. Yeah. You know, I made a difference in someone's life, and, you know, I want to keep on kind of making a difference in people's life, as cliche as that sounds.
Shouldn't sound cliche. It's a pretty real thing, man. It's an important thing to do as well. I don't think enough people think about it these days, like how little something can really affect someone and be special or meaningful, like a towel, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like the thought process I have for business is, I remember, like, when I first kind of wanted to, you know, get into business, you think of it as like a rapacious, like, oh, I just need money. I need, you know, I'm making deals. And it's very pompous. And you kind of get into the Mungers of the world, and you start to understand that, no, like a good businessman is fair. He's honest. And I just love the Buffett quote where he goes, it takes 20 minutes to build a reputation. 20 years to build a reputation, 20 minutes to destroy it. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, no, that's, you know, almost selfishly, but that's how you want to go about doing business, and that's how I want to, you know, treat other people. Yeah, is in a fair way. Yeah. You know, I'm not trying to take shortcuts. I don't want to rip people off, and yeah, I don't know. I think that's a pragmatic way to go about through business, and not in business, you know, just life in general. Yeah. Kind of.
I remember you telling me your artist split once, which we don't have to say here, but I remember you telling me your artist split, and I was like, that is a very fair artist split, and
Yeah.
you've definitely carried that through your business a lot, especially dealing with local artists and people who you recognize as like they could probably use that money, you know, like you have an incredibly fair artist split for what you're selling the towels for, so you have definitely carried that into your business.
You know, and that's another you know, mutual relationship where they get their art displayed and sold through me, and then I get to use their art to sell. You know, one of the things that I'm kind of learning and really starting to understand is what talents and skills I have and what talents and skills other people have. I'm not an artist. All right. So for me to go out there and I do make some of the towels and everything, but for me to spend all this time creating and designing, as opposed to if I can, you know, get someone else that has the skills and the talent to do that, well, it just makes sense that you go that way. You go that route.
For sure.
Yeah.
And your custom towel designer, like what you've got in the website, is very well built. I was playing with it last night, and I was like, oh man, this thing actually works like super well. And there's a lot of different, like you can choose like little fruits or backgrounds or this or that. And I was actually kind of surprised. I don't know why I was thinking it would be more difficult, but you've built it in a very like easy, intuitive way. You can upload your own images. Like it's well built for like the customer interface. And did you put that together? Or did you get someone else
That was my other the business partner that I started with, Baz, who's a phenomenal entrepreneur, and he's done other stuff now, and you know, we're still good friends and everything, and he's very tech savvy, and that was another thing that I'm not good at this, but he's obviously has strong skills for this specific you know, what we're needing. So, you know, why would I waste my time trying to build a, you know, product that isn't as good? So yeah, but like some of the other cool things that people have done is like tattoo artists that will basically create their own design and put it up on the interface and get it made and sent out. So yeah, like there's been all different sorts of opportunities / cool projects that we worked on, like where they filmed Jurassic Park, the island there. They have a kind of, not a studio, but like a park there. You know? And they bought a bunch of us. That was one of our first orders. So like that was really cool. So
sick.
It's going back to the whole, I don't really know where this thing's going to go, and I'm going to keep kind of pursuing it and take it one day at a time, and do the best I can to kind of build the brand and, you know, get on with more artists, and but asymmetries.
Just trying to find those opportunities. Sick. Something I wanted to ask you about, because way back in the day, you were doing some film projects as well, like quite a ways back in the day. You did the Greybirds.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That was your project as well.
That
right?
was that was a really cool opportunity. That was like, I learned a lot, and that was probably back when I was a little bit more egotistical, and like I just had a bit more of a myopic and kind of parochial mindset, as opposed to now, which, you know, obviously I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now if I didn't do that. But that was really cool because I kind of saw myself as like managing, you know, the whole directing and managing and kind of putting everything together. And it was cool. Like we did a intersection video.
Which is, what intersection is Whistler only? Or
Whistler only. Yeah.
Whistler only, okay.
Yeah, so basically it has to be filmed within, I think, a 50-kilometer radius of Whistler. You have a week to film. It's a really, I've done a couple intersections, and it's a fun time. It's a lot of work. But it's a really fun time because basically it has to be, you know, 5 to 7 minutes. You've seen some of them. They're really well done. Like the one that just won last year. The South Park one was like, it had everything. It had comedy, it had wit, it had good writing. So we did an intersection. Yeah, we had a good crew: Will Kovacic, Brent Alexander, Marcos.
It
was awesome. So
sick.
I learned a lot, and from there I've kind of developed into kind of more into the business. I like snowboarding. Kind of see it now as a bit more of of an escape, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
It's free time now. It's not
free
work.
time,
It's
yeah.
not work time.
Yeah, and there's I do it for the love of it. Where when one thing I found that year is I was very like, we need to get this done. We have to have, because I think I put stupid standards on what to expect, the high expectations.
Yeah.
I think we were supposed to do 4 10 to 15 minute edits.
Yeah.
Throughout the year, which
Yeah.
and I ended up getting injured that year, so
Makes it even more difficult.
yeah, it makes it even more difficult. But nonetheless, 100%, it was such a cool opportunity and such a fun experience.
I think we've all made that, dude. I've made that mistake. I think we all make that mistake as like young athletes or whatever, when you're trying to break into that social media or YouTube space where you're like, I can easily put out, like 10 5-minute edits throughout this summer or this winter. And then you get to the third one and you're like, oh my God, I'm barely going to get through 3. Like, how do I get to the rest of these? Like, it requires so much time, so much planning. And you just think it's going to be so easy. Like, you just think, I'm going to go out there and film this stuff and it'll all come together.
And it's the whole, if everything works out exactly how I think it's going to work out and there's no roadblocks, well, yeah, then by all means. But
yeah,
you're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to hit, I just think of it as whenever you are traveling somewhere, like going on a drive, you're like, oh, we can get there in 6 hours. And then you're like, yeah, that's if everything goes well and you don't hit traffic and you don't hit, construction and you don't hit this and that. And then you're like, oh, it actually took, 7 hours or 8 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's just a really good learning experience that, you kind of, and one of the things that I've been really trying to, being mindful of is using that and kind of resorting back to that, being like, hey, remember when I put these high expectations on myself that was, silly? Maybe lower the expectations. Then, if you do better, then awesome, it's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, low expectations, that helps in life.
Fair enough.
Charlie Munger said it best.
Was that a Munger quote?
Yeah,
fair enough. He was a Bitcoin hater though, man, and I'm such a Bitcoin lover, so I'm conflicted on Munger.
Well, that's kind of one of the other things that I've started to learn, where I kind of encapsulate people with, taking certain attributes from them and then just paint them with that whole brush, right? Where it's like, you can take certain aspects from everyone and say, hey, this is I really like that, and I really like this. Like, a lot of the people that I look up to are heroes. Like, let's go Charlie Munger. It's like, I wouldn't take athletic advice from him.
Yeah. Fair enough. I wouldn't take health advice from Buffett either. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you're not going to take health advice, but you take a lot of other advice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of, I think that's a good way to look at it. I mean, like, hey, you know what? I can take these things and use them in my life, and these other stuff I can kind of put off to the side. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
What was of 2023? What was your favorite book you read? Coming back to looping back around to the front.
Geez,
what was your favorite book you got into?
So my favorite, I actually have a top 5 that's coming out.
Oh, nice.
So I like to do top 5 books, and in that top 5, I did The Gulag Archipelago, which was dense, and it was kind of funny. So as I was reading that book, I was in Mexico, and for those who don't know, it's all on the labor camps in the Soviet Union, and just the atrocious living conditions and what they were going through. And so here I am on a beach, reading this, and it's just, I don't know, kind of funny, the
juxtaposition.
Yeah, exactly. The juxtaposition. Thank you. So that one, and then I did Crime and Punishment, which was Dostoevsky, which was a great read. And then a book called When Genius Failed, which was really fascinating. And I think the reason why it was also so fascinating is because I didn't know the story before it happened. But essentially James Merriweather, who came from Solomon Brothers, he essentially started his own fund, and their theory was, we're just going to get the brightest minds in the world, and we're going to do a bunch of bond arbitrage. And sure enough, the whole thing, long story short, the whole thing failed. But it was just such a unique understanding that it's not intelligence. And I guess, as I've started to get older, you start to see intelligent fools. And that's one of the things that you can learn from those people, being like, here's a guy that is brilliant and so much smarter than I am, but he makes boneheaded moves and really stupid decisions. And I think the king of this would be Sir Isaac Newton. if I'm not mistaken, he died broke. He lost all of his money in the seas trading bubble. It's like, here's one of the most, phenomenal minds, of all time.
Yeah.
And he had the tendencies or the human misjudgment to make these mistakes.
Yeah.
So it's like, if he has them, well, by all means, I have them, and I should probably be careful of what I am doing that, prevents me from following through the same as him.
Yeah.
That was a really good book. And then probably one of my favorites. So if you want to say like my favorite, like enjoyable read, was Walter Isaacson's Da Vinci book. So it's just all on Leonardo da Vinci.
Okay.
Which was it was so fascinating. You want to talk about brilliant minds. Like, this guy was 13 years old, making the most, revolutionary art, and just absolutely phenomenal. And what was so cool about him is he was the ultimate polymath in the sense that he had the scientific background, he was a inventor, and he was an artist, right? Like, he had so many things, and he was just so obsessed with being curious and understanding how things worked. And like, even with regards to gravity, I believe he was working on certain gravity and the way that water moved like 100 years before it was kind of well documented. And what was really fascinating reading him was, like, imagine if he was alive today.
Dude.
Like, one of the things that I always kind of try to keep in my head is we live in a generation where we have literally a device in our pocket that can tell us whatever we want to learn by simply clicking buttons. You want to learn a new language? Go ahead, learn a new language. You want to learn, this? Go ahead. And what's super cool is you want to listen to the best professors in a certain field, give a discussion or give a talk on something, you can do that.
Yeah.
Within minutes.
Yeah.
And what's, also kind of frustrating is a lot of people just kind of use these devices to watch cat videos, and it's, I just try to keep that in my head. Like, imagine if Da Vinci lived today, like what he would be doing and just where he would be with his thought process, because he was just fully obsessed with understanding how things worked and why they worked in a certain way. So he really fascinating. I highly recommend that book. And then the book that probably changed my perspective the most was Ordinary Men, which is a dark read. It's a very dark read, but it's all on Police Battalion 101. So these essentially policemen during Nazi Germany and just the atrocities that they went into. But it was super fascinating because it's well documented. Like, it's all, notes and journals that these policemen had. And it's kind of interesting. I believe it's called a syntopical framework, where, so when you start to read and understand, all these different, so essentially what you want to do is you want to build up to a syntopical framework, which is, you have elementary reading, which you would say, the cat went to the store, and you're just literally reading the words. The next level would be kind of understanding that. The next level would be you're almost having a dialogue with the author. And then the top level is you're having a dialogue with the author, but you're not only having it through your mind, you're also sending it through the framework of Da Vinci's mind and, all these other Munger's mind and all these other people that you've read. And you say, okay, how does this person look at it? How would this person look at it? So you kind of get this like very sagacious understanding of how, what you're reading. It's just so much deeper in the sense that it's not just you, it's,
being able to
minds.
Look at it through different lenses and different frames, now that you kind of understand their minds a bit better, having read their works. Interesting.
But that book, from the psychology aspect, it was really, really scary, I guess. But one of the things, like my main kind of takeaway from it would be, and this kind of has changed my thought, that it's not that people are morally, what would you say?
Bankrupt?
Yeah, it's the environment that people are in will correlate to what type of person that person, correlate strictly to their character. So, it's really hard to know what you would do in a certain situation when you haven't. Let's just go like as far as this, and this is like step one in what they were dealing with. But let's just go hunger. Let's say you don't have food. Let's say 3 days, 4 days. You think that you're going to have the same mindset
Yeah. Or the same morals or the same
Yeah,
ethics
exactly,
or
yeah.
like, what are you actually going to be willing
Yeah.
to do at that point to go
Yeah.
get some food? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's super easy to be, super comfortable sitting here, well fed and, hydrated and everything, to be like, oh, these people doing this stuff, and it's scary to think about that, maybe I'm not as good of a person as I think I am. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm in a good environment that I behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And kind of the second part to that is, well, let's hope we don't ever get into that environment.
Yeah.
Let's hope. I don't want to find out. So I'm going to try to avoid everything I can to not be in that environment. And, that's, through a bunch of different things, through health and, what you're talking about, kind of standing up for what you believe is true and kind of doing these necessary steps.
Yeah.
So that, because I don't want to find out what I'm capable of in a bad situation.
I think that's a huge thing that's happening in the world right now. Like, having traveled so much, having seen a lot of different things in a lot of different places. I listen to some people's opinions sometimes, and I just think, like, you've never seen a real slum, or you've never seen, like, truly hungry people. You see people on the street here in Vancouver, and they're a little, but, like, you've never seen like that true hunger, like that real poverty, and it's like your opinions would change so quickly, not even having to have lived it, but just seeing it and smelling it and feeling it and being there and being like, okay, this is what, like, real poverty feels like, or real hunger, or a real lack of education. It affects people, and it'll change your opinions very, very, very quickly. So I think we suffer from that so much in the Western world, of just like, oh yeah, this and that, and you're like, yeah, but you've never seen the other side. Like, easy to say when you're well fed, hydrated, and sheltered, but go look at someone who's not, and you're gonna change your opinions quite quickly.
Yeah. Well, and then it's also the other side of that coin is, it's fascinating that people do live in those conditions, and they do, they have lived through atrocities, and they still, have better moral judgment than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really fascinating. That's something that you should think about, and, be like, okay. And I kind of, going back to Munger, and Buffett, they say that, it's not greed that ruins the world or rules the world, but envy. And, it's super easy, because it's fascinating. It's like, okay, why do we live in a comfortable environment, and, we have such prosperity, but yet we're still envious of someone that has more? Like, it's such a weird thing to think of, where it's like, everything, has improved drastically over the last, 100, 200 years, 300 years, throughout human history.
Yeah.
Why is it that there's still this, and obviously there's inequality, but there's, it's interesting how jealousy works. Because I find myself doing it, where you'll hear someone, say a friend, oh, guess what, he just won the lottery, and instantly, maybe you don't like that person, and you're just like, oh, you get jealous.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that? Nothing has changed about my life. My life is still the exact same.
Yeah.
But now I'm unhappy because, he didn't deserve it. He doesn't actually know what he's doing.
Well, it's the fantasy of what you could do with it, or how much you deserve it, or how hard you've worked, and, like, I could use that kind of luck,
It's funny, if you want to talk about Crime and Punishment, which was one of the books, and Raskolnikov, that's literally his whole thought process. So essentially, the premise of the book is, he's in a very hard position where, he's no longer going to school, and his family is doing really bad, and his sister is getting into this marriage that she shouldn't be getting into, and there's this pawnbroker, this lady, and his whole thing, and I'm gonna butcher the quote a little bit, but it goes, one life to save, tens of thousands. It's a simple arithmetic.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, where it's, why shouldn't I go out and, kill this one lady? I could do so much more with it,
with the life.
Well, with the money, like, I could help so many people. That was like, I'm going to kill this lady. I'm going to take her money,
right.
And I'm going to help all these people, because I'm morally sound. I'm morally, I know more than this lady. And the lady, she's not a good lady by any means.
Yeah.
So, like, it makes sense. You're like, there's rationale there.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, we both know that it's not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And what is that? And that's, you get into psychology and philosophy, and I'm not by any means qualified to talk too much about it, but it's super fascinating. It's a really interesting book. I really enjoyed that one.
True.
Yeah.
Jealousy is really interesting, and I even find myself now, like, having done a lot and gotten to a really happy place, like I'm wondering when the hunger ends, if you know what I mean. Like, I look around at kind of a couple things I've accomplished or where I'm at in my position, and like I still catch myself sometimes and just be like, dude, like, just look around, like, you're doing pretty damn good. And it's like, where does that hunger end, or where do I hit that point where I feel like comfortable or established? And it's hard not to look at others and be like, well, they have, and it's very interesting psychologically.
Yeah, but and with that, like, it's a double-edged sword in the sense that obviously, having ego and having hunger is a good thing, because you need it to pursue and want to do the best, and really, you need that motivation, right? No, obviously you got to kind of keep yourself in balance is what you're looking for. Yeah, because going back to the Munger, it's having low expectations, because and that's the other thing too. A lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to be the best at a certain domain or aspect. And one of the things, I'm not a linear thinker, so I'm going to be all over the place here.
Go on.
But what's really fascinating with snowboarding is being in the industry and kind of seeing top level talent. When you see that the best and you ride with those guys, you just understand that no matter how good I am, like, they're better.
Yeah.
That's just reality.
Yeah.
And it's, not that, you could try and, have the discipline and everything, but there's just so many factors, whether it's genetics or opportunities or all this stuff that come to the mix that, it's a bit silly to have that as your main goal, to be the very best, because you're going to be disappointed. Yeah. Obviously, there's only one person that's the best. There's only one, and the likelihood that it's you is, statistically speaking, very low.
Yeah.
So why not, turn that in on itself as, okay, I'm going to be the best version of myself, which is obviously, a bit of a cliche, but it makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of, with snowboarding, what I started to realize was like, whoa, this is the level that people can ride at, and, I'm not at that level. And then what was really cool is that's not just snowboarding, that's every domain out there, whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's engineers or whether it's, musicians, like, or people that read. Like, if I think that I'm going to outread someone that can read 100 books a year like nothing, that's a pretty silly thing to do. Or, if I think that I'm going to be, the next Elon Musk, well, that's a pretty silly thing to do, So why not just lower your expectations? No, that doesn't mean pursue them and, try your very best to see where that can go. But, if you have extremely high expectations, you're unfortunately going to be disappointed, which, it's not a bad thing. Like, a lot of people kind of think that as a pessimistic way to look, but it's like, no.
Yeah, that's where I was about to say is, like, I've always gone for the, like, aim for the stars, land on the moon kind of thing, is like, have the high expectations, but also recognize that you might not get there, but at least shoot for your utmost,
and by all means, but shoot for the most of yourself and understand where your talents are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously, I don't know about you, but, like, I'm not, gifted musically.
Oh, no, I got nothing. No, I got no music.
Like, why would I go into that domain? Or, same thing with art. Like, I'm not going to go into, like, those aren't my domains, and I'm not going to, try to pursue it. So get good at the things that you're good at. And, going back to snowboarding is actually kind of something that I started to understand as well, where I always thought that being good at snowboarding, which it is, but being able to do every single trick every single way, that's what you should do. And I would try to do tricks that necessarily that I'm not good at, but I would try to do them because I'm like, oh, I haven't done it, this way. But when you start to perfect the tricks that you are good at, well, that someone that's watching you, or when you're filming a part, like, you're good at those tricks. You're gonna land those tricks, and people are gonna want to see them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I'm still stuck on that. There's still things that I can't do, like certain rotations I can't do certain ways that I'll always be, and I'm too old now for it. Also, like, I went out riding the other day and there was just that one down bar set up, and like I hopped on it a couple times and was like, think I'm a resort dog now, like there's still some tricks I want to learn, but I think my time might be up. It's a it's a hard bit of acceptance and I know people say like, oh, you're still a young man or whatever, but like there is a certain point where it's like, right, like I'm not learning a back nine. I just got to accept that at this point and just be like, it's not going to come around, and you're not going to learn a front 10 either. And there is a certain bit of like real hard acceptance in that of like you have aged and you're not a young man anymore, and you're 33 now, and it's just what it is, and you're going to have to achieve to those levels and look to other aspects in your life to satisfy you. But it's hard. It is really hard, and it's like a realization I've been fighting now for a couple of years that I think I'm ready to accept at this point now, but it's hurting inside for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely hard, but at the same time, like there's okay, well, you can deal with it one of two ways.
Yeah.
You can try to hold on to it and just be, oh no, I'm gonna compete with these young guns, which I would say is a foolish way to look at it. Or you can say, hey, I've learned a lot from this. I can take what I've learned from it and use it in other aspects of whatever it is. With competing, one of the things that you learn is pressure. Yeah, it's a really good thing to learn at a young age. There are times where you have to perform. Whatever it is. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that you can take from that and move forward. And also, it's not like you're not riding. It's not like
no, I know. Yeah.
It's kind of how I found announcing, where it's like, okay, I'm not competing anymore, but I can announce.
Yeah. Still enjoy my time on the mountains and
exactly.
in this industry. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a healthy way to kind of go through it and understand that, there's going to be, obviously our time is limited, and you're going to get to certain aspects and areas in your life where you have to change things up. And that's why you talked about reading, and that's one of the reasons why I found reading really important, in the sense that, I'm not going to be able to snowboard when I'm 80 years old, 90 years old, but you can read
forever.
Yeah. And a big part of that too was injuries. So when you're injured, like I remember it would kill me inside when I was injured, because I was such an active person, and I'd be so obsessed with, just doing things, being, physical. But when I got into reading, I'm like, okay, no, this is a way that I can still enjoy my time, and, obviously I can't do anything right now being injured. So it was a good compromise.
Yeah, fair enough. And are you seeking out any more announcing jobs now? Are you actively marketing yourself out there as an announcer?
Yeah. So I literally, like, whenever I'm at an event or I hear someone that does, I just throw my name. Same thing with beach days,
Yeah.
Whenever I meet anyone, it's just, hey, going back to the asymmetry. Worst thing that happens, it falls flat and they never talk to you again, but maybe it turns into something. So, just kind of keep throwing those things out there and see what happens. But I'd love to keep on announcing and kind of get into a bunch of things. So
fair.
Yeah, working with some other mountains and stuff. So we'll see.
I want to see beach days take off, man. I think it's I think it's a good business, and there's such good I got my aunt one for Christmas a few years ago, dude. She was just like over the moon. Like I feel like you're gonna hit this point of like saturation where it's gonna be like enough people will know about them, and then it'll finally start to go. Because like even if you're going down to like Kitts Beach to like have a couple drinks with your friends, it's like they're so big. There's so much you can, so much room on them, and I think they're fantastic, and I'm really like waiting for that time we go sit down and you're like, I got a warehouse, it's taken off now. Like I'm waiting for it. I know it's coming.
Yeah, well, and it's like it is cool when you go down to the park or the beach and you see someone with it. Like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and then I'll always kind of go up and chat with them, like, hey, how do you like it? And kind of introduce myself, and so it's such a, business is just such a fun aspect where, like, I really see it as I guess as a game, in the sense that, there's so much strategy in it and so much tactics, and it's just really cool to see where it goes and where it ends up. So. Yeah.
And you're like you said a second ago, like buying businesses. Your mindset's kind of like to learn from this and then start buying some businesses as
so. To go back to Buffett, he goes, "I'm a good investor because I'm a businessman. I'm a good businessman because I'm an investor." And that's exactly how I see it. Where I want to learn about what makes a good business. the same way you look at what makes a good snowboarder, a good hockey player, a good football player, there's so many different ways to create a business. It's not a cookie cutter model that you just kind of throw out there. All different types of businesses have certain attributes that make it a good business and make it a poor business. The same way that let's go hockey. A good goalie isn't going to score goals, but you need them.
Yeah.
There's certain businesses where a good business might not be your high flying tech company that's going to take over the world, but maybe it's a ditch digging company.
Yeah.
That hey, they need it.
For sure.
It helps out the world. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. I love laundromats. My goal in life is to own a laundromat. It's the most boring business, and everyone's like, a laundromat? And I'm like, yeah, because it's just money goes into it. It kind of runs itself. You got to do some maintenance every once in a while, pay the lease, whatever, some maintenance costs, but it's just, oh God, it's such a sexy business to me. I really want a laundromat. That's my end goal, is to own a bunch of laundromats, because everyone needs to do laundry. Many people are in Vancouver, everyone's in apartments and whatever. If you're a couple of cents cheaper than what the apartment laundry is, you're winning, and it just turns itself over, and boring businesses are so nice.
Sorry, I was going to go back. So I do have a fun fact for you.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
let's hear it.
Fun fact. I won't say it in your voice because I feel like. But what is the largest company market cap wise in Africa?
Oh my God, I have no idea. I wouldn't even begin to know.
So, the largest company in Africa is called Naspers.
Okay.
So, they have I'll get into the business first. So, what do you think they do?
Oh God. For some reason, I think it's something to do with water, but maybe that's just because you're drinking water. I couldn't even begin to imagine.
So, they initially were a publishing company. They were a newspaper company.
Really?
They're the biggest company in Africa.
No way.
And back in 2001, Koos Becker, the CEO at the time, I believe, he bought another company, $34 million, bought into a company called Tencent in 2001.
Nice.
And since then, they've held on to their shares. And it is now a $100 billion company. It's come down a little bit, but
wow, it's
a $100 billion company. And it was a newspaper company out of Cape Breton, or I don't know, so somewhere in South Africa.
That's just a brilliantly lucky play that you would choose Tencent to invest a bunch of money into, because they're huge in China.
Yeah.
Massive.
So to this day, I think they still own 30% of Tencent.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's crazy that they're and it's not even they're by far the biggest company in all of Africa.
That's interesting.
A newspaper company.
Publishing
company. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to drop that before this episode.
Yeah,
Everyone's like, wait, you gave him that one? You can't just throw this down, dude. That's a great fun fact. Mm-hmm. Wow, I had no idea. But they're just those good. They must have just seen it and just been like, this is a smart idea for us to jump in there and invest some money here.
Yeah, and you go back to asymmetries, and businesses are all asymmetrical. Well, they should be asymmetrical. That's what you should be looking for. You want to find something that, let's put it this way, most businesses, and technically all businesses, are going to die at some point. But the framework that I have, when looking at a business, is understanding that let's put it this way, going back to Buffett says he's only gotten 12 companies right in his life. Everything else was average, and 12 companies were truly right.
Yeah.
And understanding that is really fascinating, in the sense that you can have a company go up, in Nasper's case, 10,000% or whatever it is. A $30 million investment became $100 billion.
Insane.
So, you can have that. So yeah, understanding that they're not all going to be home runs. Mm-hmm. And when they're not a home run, leave it by the wayside, move on to something else, and so be it. Try not to lose too much. So don't leverage and go heavy into certain things. And then also just understanding that you're trying to predict future outcomes. That's essentially what it is. So I kind of think of investing or business buying as three things. So I have it broken down. The acronym is FOC. So valuation, opportunity cost, capital allocation. So number one, valuation. How do you value something? And it's obviously up for debate of how to value something, but a lot of people, and myself included, would be the lifetime of that business, the cash flow that you get from that business discounted back to present day value.
Okay.
Right? So that would be number one. Number two would be opportunity cost. So obviously there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of businesses to buy, a lot of investments to start, but you got to say, okay, your opportunity cost will be different than my opportunity cost, given the people that you know and the network that you know. Right. So you got to kind of look at, A comparison to B. And then the third one would be capital allocation, which is, okay, how much do I actually put into this? How much, am I willing to spend on this?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the three. And, it's, I think, obviously a very simplified way of understanding frameworks. And you can use that in other stuff too. Like, whether it's friendships or relationships or whatever it is, it's like
cold.
No.
Cold.
But no, like think about it, like.
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah,
but
sure.
like, so when you meet someone or a friend, you're saying, okay, like how do I get along with this person really well? Do we hit it off? Like whatever it is. So you put a valuation on that, and then how much time should I spend with this person? And I don't know, maybe not so much the capital allocation part, but
yeah, no, I know what you mean. I used that formula a lot, like as savage as it sounds, like when I was kind of coming up over the last like year and a bit, and like working 2 jobs and making videos on the side and everything. Like I did have to use that kind of equation of being like, I don't have much time. Like I have to be really careful who and where I place it, and like who am I spending time with, and maybe not why might be the wrong question, but just like really making sure like the people that got my time, like in those moments of my life, like I valued them incredibly. You know what I mean? It was like there was no space for like casual acquaintances or just like whatever friends. It was like, you matter, you're gonna get some time. But yeah, I think you can use that equation just about anywhere. I like where your head's at too, with the, like using like the very low impact like beach days model, where you've got very little at risk to essentially give yourself a business degree to then be ready for that moment where you find that right opportunity to then be, okay, I'm ready to buy this and I understand how the business works. So I have all the information I need to move forward.
Yeah.
I think it's quite intelligent.
Yeah, and that's not my idea. That's just, people that I've read that I've just kind of taken from myself. And I know one of the things that Manish Barai talks about is just being a shameless cloner. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. See what works.
Yeah.
Kind of copy it.
Yeah. Just go from there. Keep going from there.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting one. Another one that I kind of keep in mind, it's Munger, and if you haven't watched it, by all means go watch it. It's 24 or 26 Reasons for Human Misjudgment. It's about an hour long. It's a talk that he did back in '94, I think, and it's the best kind of psychological breakdown that he's ever done, and it's so fascinating. I probably listened to it about 30 times. It's really well done.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really appreciate that one. So
if
you want to listen to like the
high level
high level thought process, that's and he's able to break it down, like just simplify everything really easy.
Those guys were good talkers in that sense. So like compared to like you listen to some of the Silicon Valley guys now, and they're like a little far out there, a little too wild. But like Munger and Buffett always like they talked like humans. Like they did talk like humans, and I always appreciated that about them for sure. It was like I can understand what this guy's saying, even though he's got this crazy net worth and he's super smart. Like he actually does speak like a normal human, which is quite nice. Yeah.
One of the things that I love in that talk that he gives is understanding kind of Pavlov and the dog, and understanding how we associate things together. So he calls it association tendency, I believe. So it's fascinating where that's how all marketing works, right? Whereas you want to be associated with good things, but you like it's interesting to think like, okay, why is it that George Clooney is drinking Nespresso, or is it Nespresso?
Nespresso, yeah.
Like why is that?
Money, I assume, like a good
but
opportunity.
But it's association.
Yeah.
So you think, oh, here's a guy.
I see what you mean from the branding,
powerful.
the branding marketing side of things. I think also like the market he's hitting, like the age demographic he's going to be hitting is fantastic, and people want a nice, quick, delicious coffee, which. Nespresso is all of those things. So it does make sense. But yeah, I find I would love to get into like the marketing side of things
Well,
one day, like very heavily. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, and like you could take the same quote and put it beside two, and I would love to see a study done, especially political, because I think it'd just be hilarious if you took two politicians and put the exact same quote, and then put the face of that politician beside that quote.
Yeah.
And then did studies on how people react to it.
Yeah.
And obviously, people on the right would react different than people on the left. And just, had that as a study. I think it would be fascinating what you'd find out. Because as soon as you see, the political figure that you don't like, it doesn't matter what he's saying.
No. Yeah,
you just
not
see
at
it
all.
and you're like, no.
Yeah.
Totally. But as soon as you see it on a political figure that you do like, I just think of it as the same as a sports team. It's interesting. So I'm a big Colorado Avalanche fan, right?
Let's go Avalanche.
Let's go. If I am walking around and I see a guy in a Colorado Avalanche jersey, I automatically am like, that's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Although, let's break it down. We literally support the same hockey team.
Yeah.
This guy could be a total
douchebag.
Yeah, exactly. Like he could be nefarious and who knows what else. But because he has the same, we support the same team. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And then I see a team that I don't like, and I can't believe this person's wearing this. And it's so interesting that psychologically, like that's how we kind of go through life.
Yeah.
All the time. We always are kind of making those, and like what it is a heuristic. Like you're familiar with heuristics, yeah. So I guess essentially a mental shortcut, which makes sense to have in certain areas, but there's a lot of blind spots with heuristics.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of Danny Kahneman and Ostrovsky and what they talk about.
All right, Connor. Well, thank you so much
worries.
for
Thank you.
talking with me. First of all, where can people find Beach Days? Where are we picking up one of these lovely, beautiful Beach Days towels?
Head onto the website right there, www.beachdaystowel.com. Check out the website. If you want to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, by all means.
Where do they find you? If someone wants to find you, how are they keeping up with you?
Probably Instagram, I would say. Say Connor_Palahicky is my Instagram handle.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in and talking with me, man. I wish you all the best with Beach Days, and I'm really excited to see it grow and see it grow into something huge.
I'll say the same thing with you with the podcast. I hope that this is the next NASPER.
The next NASPER, yeah, dude. Invest now, everyone. 10,000x. Hell yeah, man. Well,
Awesome. Thank you.
See you soon, dude.
Cheers. Appreciate that.